Welcome to the InCites podcast by UNSW Law Society. The production team would like to begin by acknowledging the Gadigal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is made, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. This episode is sponsored by Montgomery Advisory, a firm dedicated to helping lawyers take the next step in their career path. The firm focuses on legal recruitment using unparalleled market and business knowledge to provide counsel and support for lawyers looking for new positions. We're joined today by Sam Gray and Laura Lal, who are both directors here at Montgomery. Both are responsible for recruiting and placing lawyers in various sectors across the globe, working closely with key personnel from national and international law firms to ensure quality lawyers find roles in which they can excel. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So I guess we'll start off with a kind of general question. For the viewers who don't quite understand or quite grasp what the kind of sector is, could you kind of explain what a legal recruiter does specifically?
I guess if you're a uni student, you would probably not have heard what a recruiter is, because I know I hadn't, for sure. So basically what we do, we're like a middleman between lawyers and law firms or offices of general counsel. So we get approached by a law firm, whether it be Mallison's, Freehills, Allen's, or even Linklaters, Clifford Chance in the UK or even further afield in the US. And they might say to us, we want to find a 5-year M&A lawyer. So then we have a database of around, I think it's about 48,000 lawyers now. So quite a few. And then we call the people we know, do a deeper search and try and cover the market, and then provide the product, being the person. We're people traders, essentially. Some people say slave traders because lawyers per hour don't get paid very well. That's another story. And then we provide them a lawyer, and hopefully that lawyer wants the job, but we might provide that lawyer to 6 firms at once, even though that firm approached us. And then on the flip side, and the reason we sort of exist is back in the day when, because if you go back 20 years, lawyers didn't really change jobs. Like they were often in the one firm from grad through to partner, through to retirement at 55. Now people are working to 70 odd, and then the rise of the internet, you hear about, that firm's got a great culture, or they get paid more, and suddenly people are like, well, I don't want to explore all, how do I get to them without applying to 20 different firms? So then, the recruitment market was started in the UK, and then it came here, and then eventually got to legal, and then our job is they come to us, we sit down with them, interview them, figure out what they want, whether it be salary, better culture, international opportunities, then we give them we run them through the options, and then we get a shortlist and provide it, and then we're the middleman. So or middle woman in Laura's case, or middle person is probably the better term. And we provide information, set up interviews, and take the heat off them in terms of the partners or lawyer or the HR trying to contact them directly and put pressure on them to accept the job. We manage all that. We manage both sides of the negotiation, and they hopefully have a smoother process. That's it in a nutshell. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Laura.
I guess in simple terms, we find lawyers jobs, and we find lawyers for law firms or companies, to summarize. I
might have overcomplicated that.
You mentioned 48,000 odd people in the database. I guess that comes with a lot of success stories in terms of career progression. And what aspect of your role would you find most rewarding or challenging, or both? And are there any particularly memorable moments or placements that you could pinpoint in your career?
Laura?
Yeah, I think the most challenging aspect of it for me would be, given I've been doing it for over a decade now, as you mentioned at the beginning.
She looks young, right?
Thank you. I think counselling lawyers throughout their career. So I've moved a number of lawyers now in my network, not once, not twice, but maybe 3 times in their careers. And that's not because they hate their job. It's just purely because they're ready for a new challenge. As Sam mentioned, lawyers these days, they don't tend to generally stick around in a law firm for really any longer than 5, 6, 7 years at the junior level, that is. And it's really been rewarding to see those lawyers progress throughout their career and stay in contact with them. And when I started as a legal recruiter, a lot of the lawyers that now I'm in contact with are sort of similar level to myself, but at law firms, so partners. So therefore the roles have changed. Now they've become my client and we're recruiting for them.
Yeah, and I guess, there's we've done quite a few. I've been doing this for 16 years now, so I've made quite a few placements. But the ones I guess I enjoy the most are the ones where I find somebody in a boutique firm that perhaps is not that well known locally, and they're not fully aware, and they come to you like, what do I do? And you meet them and you think, wow, this person's
good,
very good, and they don't even know it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you go, have you thought about maybe Freehills and Allisons? They're like, oh, I'm not like that, but you're like, I know you might think that, but I've met a lot of lawyers from Freehills and Allisons, and you're probably got better skills than they do, and then you help them realize that, and then realize their potential, and then they're forever grateful. And like Laura said, those people are often the ones you place, then they want to go to New York or London, and then they come back. And we do in-house as well. So I like that. I also like the days when you get a call from an old candidate, you know, you haven't spoken with in 5 years, and they're just calling you for advice. You know, they go, hey, I know you're not helping me out in this role, but what do you think of this opportunity? What do you think of the partner? So it shows that you become a true trusted advisor. So that's what I get the most satisfaction out of. Yeah.
And also, I think when someone refers you to their friend or a colleague, that's a true reflection that they've had a good experience with us, and they come to us for their next move, both on the client side and also the candidate side. It's quite nice.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that I guess 10, 20 years ago, there was kind of a culture of loyalty towards a firm in which you stay at a firm until you're 50, 60, and then you retire.
Or dead. Yeah.
Yeah, or dead. And do you think that this kind of new age thinking, I guess, where you spend 5 or 6 years at a firm and then you move towards a better opportunity, do you think that's better for the job environment, or do you think the kind of olden ways were better?
I mean, personally, I think it's good to experience new firms, work with different people, different styles. On the same token, there's nothing wrong with staying at a firm for all your career. If you really enjoy the people that you work with and you like the work and you've got good clients. But
well, Laura's here 7 years now with us, so
yeah, I'm one of those.
I'm sure that continues.
So yeah, I think I think it's good to move because of the experience, and a lot of lawyers at the junior level want to do an international stint. Or, for example, if they've decided that they don't want to be a lawyer in a law firm anymore, they want to experience, a new opportunity at a company where they can utilize the skill sets that they've built up and then expand. And then that opportunity can lead into a non-legal or quasi-legal role in a company. Yeah. So I guess having a law degree initially is a really good degree to have. Yeah. You've got lots of opportunities down the line.
I feel like it's a fine balance though. Like you've got to... You can't just move because you're having a bad day, or you didn't feel like you deserved a bigger pay rise, because the reality is in the current market, if you're not getting a bigger pay rise, you're probably not that good. So those people leave, but they often go to another job thinking it's going to be better, and they leave again, and before you know it, you've had 4 jobs in 3 years, and then the question marks start to be raised. Yeah. So moving is great if it's for a reason, like I want to go in-house or overseas, or I want to go top tier, or I want a better work-life balance. But I feel like if you can go somewhere for 3 years, you learn a lot more than if you're changing jobs every 18 months. So some people overcook it, some people are better. And then it's funny now, if someone's been in a job for 12 years, they're like odd, Yeah. Whereas back in the day, that was not even a long tenure. Like my dad has been a partner at the same firm. He's for 53 years. Wow. Not a partner, so in the same firm for 53 years. Still there. He's with the last of the dinosaurs. Yeah. Or the last of the Mohicans, as they say.
Yeah. And from what I understand, both of you studied law at university, and as a university student now, kind of the two parts that are kind of clearly defined for us are private or public law. And I guess legal recruitment is quite an unconventional career path. And so what I'm trying to understand is, were there any experiences that kind of influenced your decision to pursue this career?
No, short answer. I think you don't go into study law and combine degrees. You don't study to become a recruiter, first and foremost. It's not a job you go, I've always dreamed of becoming a recruiter. How do I do that? I'm going to study law for 5 years, become a lawyer, get flogged, and then go, you know what? I'm going to find recruitment. So it tends to be a journey. But I think how you are at uni, on reflection, in hindsight, you can see what you're better suited to once you've experienced something. So on reflection, I think I was always going to be a good recruiter, but I didn't know about the profession. I didn't know it existed. I didn't think to study to become one. What generally happens is people go to whether you're a lawyer, an engineer, or an accountant, you take a job and you hope that it's going to work out. But sometimes you get there and the theory doesn't translate into practice, and you're like, well, what do I do now? And that can be quite confronting. And then that's when people go, well, let's shift, and recruitment becomes an option. And if you've got a law degree, it works because it helps to understand the psyche of a lawyer, and you build that rapport easily. So like 85% of us are ex-lawyers, but I don't think any of us at uni thought about becoming a recruiter. Look, there is the odd exception now coming through where people go, I actually don't want to be a lawyer, and that's an interesting path. We've actually met a few of them, but back in my day, like when I applied for a job and a recruiter called me, I thought I had to give them money. And I was like, how much do I owe you? And they're like, no, we're a service. And I'm like, oh, right. Didn't even know. And then they said, you want a job in recruitment? I was like, oh, no. I'm a lawyer, And then 6 months later, I'm a recruiter. 4 weeks in, absolutely loved it, never looked back. Yeah. I don't know what your experience was.
Yeah, my experience was a bit different. I grew up in a small town in Ireland and came to Australia after completing my law degree. I went on a gap year. Originally born in New Zealand, so I had a passport, so it gave me a ticket into Australia. And I worked for a barrister in New Zealand to get experience. Worked out pretty quickly that life wasn't for me. And then I came to Australia and I got work experience at a law firm up in Queensland. And whilst I liked the people aspect, I didn't really enjoy the work aspect. So then I decided, okay, well, what else are my options? And realized that I like people, I like meeting people. I'd done a lot of travel, and I just so happened to meet someone as I was backpacking around Australia who was in recruitment, different sector. And we ended up living together, and she used to come home every night talking about, I met this person today, from different walks of life. And I thought to myself, I could do that. And I then registered with a recruiter. Didn't know what a recruiter was before I moved to Australia. As I said, small town in Ireland, didn't need a recruiter. We just walked into a place of business with your CV. And I would say I fell into it, and I interviewed with a few different types of agencies, but the legal role had the most synergies. And 11 years later,
maybe more,
here I am. And I think going through that process of elimination and working out what you really enjoy, it made sense for me to be in this type of role as well. Like Sam was saying, I was never suited to be a lawyer. I don't think so.
And that's the thing, you can't forecast what you're going to be suited to, because we both did well at uni, got a job, got a grad job, corporate lawyer, got all my Christmases that come at once, and then 4 weeks in I'm like, I don't like this at all. And I gave it some time, but it didn't change. And but then you go, well, how can I use my skills? And if you're good with people and you're a good communicator, you can still be in touch with the law. That's what I like about it, because you're still a part of the legal fabric, so you haven't, it's not a total waste of 5 years of your life in a degree. And something, if I look back at people I went to law school with, I'd say now, from my close friends, there's probably 2 of them are still lawyers.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're barristers. Oh, sorry. A couple partners and a couple barristers. The rest are own businesses, but they all started as lawyers, and they got experience, and they used it. One's a couple of teachers, like they've used it for all different types of things, and it's a great springboard for all different types of professions. Yeah,
I would totally agree.
We normally recruit people. So to your point, do uni students become recruiters? Probably no is the answer, but we get a lot of 1, 2, 3 year lawyers who are people persons. Who want to change career, and then they sort of think about what can they do. Like, if you've studied, what can you do? If you've been a lawyer for 3 years and you're getting paid $120,000, you can't just become an accountant. You can't just go maybe you can go into banking if you're a banking lawyer or a corporate lawyer. What are your options? You know what I mean? It's a bit of a scary process for them. So the people we recruit are those people, and they work out great because they're dedicated, they work hard, great attention to detail, and they're really good with people. So the girl I met today, very good. That's why I was with her for an hour and a half. Yeah.
And why do you think firms and prospective employees would kind of utilize your services as a legal recruiter rather than just going through their HR department or looking for jobs themselves?
Well, first and foremost, they're not lazy. No, I'm kidding. You can answer that one.
One of the main factors is time from a law firm or HR perspective. They have got 20 million things to do. Recruitment is one of them, and we take that, I guess, time piece away from them. And on the lawyer side, lawyers like to deal with recruiters purely because they have to have the conversation once with us. If they're speaking with 10 firms individually, they have to have that conversation, those 10 times. They can have it once with us, we'll feed it through. And I think when it comes to negotiating salaries as well, a lot of people don't like to do that directly with a law firm or a company, and that's where we come into play, because that's a part of our job. It's an awkward conversation, not for us. We're good negotiators.
No, it's easy when it's not you.
Yeah.
When you're negotiating with someone else, it's quite easy. I think HR, a lot of them go in HR, they're not, recruitment isn't part of their training at university, so they don't fully appreciate that's a big part of the job. And if you think about what makes a company, it's the talent they can get and retain. So the companies that do it well understand that, and yes, they will try and recruit themselves through word of mouth. Some firms will pay their lawyers $10,000 to find them a lawyer. Yeah, cash payment. You know what I mean? So interestingly, lawyers are reluctant to recommend someone because they're worried if it doesn't work out, it's going to reflect poorly on them. So that doesn't, because when that first came out, I'm thinking this could be the end of us. And then suddenly hardly anyone was using it. And the ones that did, some of them are now recruiters because they liked it so much. But, and to Laura's point, they're busy. And recruitment's never been what they wanted to do, and they don't necessarily value it. So they're quite happy to get an expert to do that. And as I said before, we've got 48,000 lawyers in the database. Lawyers come to us because we give them options. If you go to a firm, that's one option.
Yeah.
And then you've got to manage 6 different applications to 6 different HR people, and they're all putting pressure on you, and they just go, no, time out. And they've got their day jobs to do as well. So we're the candidates like us because we make their life easier. The firms accept us, even though they don't like paying it, because we make their lives easier as well. And quite simply, we just do it better than they can, because that's our jobs. That's all we do. You know what I mean?
And part of our job as well is to, on the lawyer side, prep them for interview. So we go through an interview prep session once a firm has requested to interview, which they wouldn't otherwise get if they were dealing with a firm directly, and which they really appreciate, particularly if there are those loyal people that have stayed in jobs for quite a long time and it's their first time on the market. They really value.
And the insight, we can tell them that partner maybe a bit unpleasant, maybe don't go there, they're really charming but they're a sociopath. When you meet a sociopath, you often like them, which is the scary thing, right? And hopefully you never meet a psychopath, but you'll probably like them too. And law firms have a few of them. But in all seriousness, the law firms culturally are way better than they used to be. You don't get those sort of crazies allowed there anymore. Yeah. But just knowing, that person, you're not going to be able to read them. They'll sit there stone-faced the whole interview. And some people, they go, that person didn't like them. They start putting them off. But if you know they're going in, you go, well, that's how they are. So we can give that helps. And when they deal directly, you just go to here's the meeting room, turn up, hope for the best. Yeah. And funny enough, before I met Laura, I never prepped people because I just thought, if they can't get the job, that's how I was brought up. That's their bad luck. And Laura's like, what are you talking about? If you just give them an hour, they might do better. They might get a job. I'm like, that's a good point. And then sure enough, it worked. Now I do it. So I think that's why we're used, just because we provide more and we make everyone's lives easier. And then once you've done that, they trust you, so they want to use you again. They don't, because they know I'll just send my CV to Sam or Laura. I just put my feet up, interviews will roll in, and I just hopefully a job offer comes, and all I do is attend the meetings. And then when the partner's like, can we call them? Can we offer them the job? Like, hang on, no, you can't. Don't be too keen. It's like dating,
Gotta play it cool.
They've got 5 other options. Yeah. Like, what do you mean they've got 5 other options? Can't we call them? And then when I hear that goes, they'll call them directly and start. It's kind of harassment. Yeah, and they think that's like, we're excited, we want to get them, but they don't give them the opportunity to explore options in that piece that we provide. That's what good recruiters do. That's what Montgomery does. Yeah.
Definitely.
And we are the best.
Laura, you mentioned earlier that you've kind of traveled the globe coming from Ireland. And I guess the question I have is, what has it been like working internationally, especially during COVID? And I guess, are there any unique challenges placing lawyers, both domestically and internationally?
Yeah, so I think during the pandemic, there wasn't too much international movement at all. Now that the borders are open, it's definitely starting to pick up for sure. There's a backlog of lawyers here in Australia and indeed New Zealand and vice versa in the UK looking to move out here. And it's just becoming more and more the norm again. Given we're an international company too, it's been great from my perspective. I've still got family over in the Northern Hemisphere, so quite regularly pre-pandemic I would have gone back to that side of the world, spent a week in London, met with lawyers over there. Typically Aussies wanted to move back to Australia, or indeed UK qualified lawyers that wanted to move to Australia, and talk them through all their options here. And Sam's actually going next week.
Yeah, Monday.
To London.
Yep. Yeah, so we've got a UK office, so we've got 2 recruiters over there, and a law student who helps with our admin research, which we've got 3 law students here as well, actually, from different universities. And yeah, I try and go over twice. Well, the plan was going twice a year. We started a London office in back end of September. It was like August 2019. I went over in September. My business partner Andrew went over in November, and then pandemic. So it's my first trip back in 3 years, to almost to the day. But the reason we set it up is the flow. A lot of Aussies and Kiwis go there, then they come back, and we want to be the people that they use to do that. And lawyers, you know, one of the great things about being a lawyer, if you're in the right practice area, and that's something I'm happy to talk about, but you can move anywhere in the world. If it's a Commonwealth jurisdiction, or it's an area like banking and finance where the documentation will be in English, and so it is quite a portable profession, and it's not everyone's that lucky to be able to do that. So you see, we deal with lawyers who've gone from Australia to Amsterdam, Munich, Frankfurt, Berlin, London, obviously, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Dublin, probably not Belfast. I don't recall anyone doing that
Yet.
Other parts of France. I mean, if you go to Europe, you need an EU passport or speak the language. Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, all through the Middle East, Tokyo. Yeah, so even Jakarta, Bangkok. So there's a lot of options for lawyers to travel. Yeah, and for recruiters. So as Laura said, if one of our staff go, hey, I'm off to Japan, I'll be like, do you want to do some work over there? Like, what do you mean? I'll pay for your flights.
Ski during the day.
So if you meet 5 lawyers a day for 2 days, we'll pay for your flights. And they're like, give me a week. Yeah. Make it happen. Yeah. So that's a little perk that we offer.
Yeah. So I am going to New Zealand in a couple of weeks. I've got family there. My mum lives there. So we're doing a bit of a rodeo, meeting with lawyers in Auckland and Wellington, again, who are looking to move to Australia or further afield. And then that I often go to Perth as well. And then, I've gone to London. So it's a really good career path, or alternative career path to a lawyer, if you want to travel.
Yeah, so lawyers can travel, recruiters can travel, and I'm actually going to meet a bunch of UK recruiters and try and convince them to come to Australia, because we can sponsor. So that's part of my plan in the UK. They don't know that yet, but that's my plan. Yeah. They won't listen to this, so it'll be fine.
And when you guys travel internationally to meet with those lawyers, are they part of an existing network, or do you kind of have to utilize your connections to kind of get in contact with them?
A mixture of both, I'd say. We tap into the database, and we use LinkedIn, and most lawyers are on there these days. There's only a handful that generally aren't on there.
Moment, actually, who's not. Senior lawyer at Mallesons, but the old one isn't on there. Are you guys on LinkedIn? Are you on? Yeah. Is it used by uni students?
I feel like for a commerce degree, it's part of the degree to get LinkedIn. I feel like that's kind of a shift, but generally for other degrees, I don't think there's that.
I guess
pressure.
you wouldn't really use it because it's not until you're working.
But
LinkedIn is a source. So when I'm over there now, I'm using database. You can do things like LinkedIn campaigns, which is something you probably haven't heard of, where you speak to the tech guys at LinkedIn and you go, hey, I want to send out some information to a certain type of person. So lawyer, these law firms, with a note that I'm going to be in London.
Yeah. And
only they'll see it through algorithms. So we pay money for that. And then basically, if you get on LinkedIn in your feed, it'll just pop up.
Oh.
I won't see it. Laura won't see it. Only the people we want to see it will see it. And then there's a button to click if you're interested in chatting. So we use things like that as well. It costs a bit of money, but there's good ROI on that. And then, referrals. And I've spoken to Laura. Hey, Laura, I'm going to be in London. Can you reach out to anyone you know? I'm happy to meet them. Also, I'll meet anyone for anyone. That's how we tend to do it. But it's hard to just randomly call someone and go, hey, I'm in London, you want to meet? And they're like, so who are you? Yeah. That's hit and miss. You could call 100 people and get one meeting. That's not a good use of time.
So there's a bit of prep obviously involved, like for any trip or any job before you go. But generally speaking, if you mention that the coffee's on you and they want to move internationally, they're up for a chat. And as you can tell, Sam likes to chat.
Definitely, yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit.
I guess this might be personal experience or it could be the general consensus, but I guess what a lot of people are feeling right now is that we are currently in a tough legal job market, especially for university students due to decreased demand from the firms. Do you guys believe this to be the case?
Are you talking about clerks and grads, summer clerks? Yeah, I think 2020 for sure, 2021 even. I feel like the cohort that'll be start this year and then next year, I feel like it's, from speaking to law firms, they've increased their demand again to in some cases pre-GFC levels. So it's actually not a bad time to be a grad. Fingers crossed the world doesn't go to hell in a handbasket anytime soon. So if you're looking for a job this year, next year, I think it's not a bad time as a grad, but there was a 2-year period there where I think it was tough, and a lot of those people that might have dreamt of being lawyers unfortunately didn't get a gig, and they're doing whatever they're doing. But I feel like the next couple of years is not a bad time to be a graduate, and the reason for that is transactions. There's a lot of transactional activity in the market, even with interest rates going up. That creates opportunity. The private equity guys who are cashed up love that, and most of the grads settle in litigation and corporate in particular, or finance or property. Property's booming, construction's booming. The government is spending, state government and federal, mainly state, on infrastructure in New South Wales is out of control, to the point where there's a shortage of lawyers, but there's a shortage of everything, right? So how are they going to get it done? And then on the back of that, mistakes are made. Guess what happens? Litigation. Who needs paralegals grads? Litigate big ticket litigation, which is going to go on. So I actually think the tide's turned a little bit. Hopefully that's good news for law students out there, and enjoy it while it lasts, is what I'd say. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. And I'd also say that for grads in particular, there's those uni career fairs where lots of the top firms are there, but there's a suite of law firms that don't attend those, that we deal with and that we also don't deal with, that I would imagine law graduates wouldn't even know about. So I guess advice would be to look outside the firms that come to those graduate fairs, and the way to do that, Google, internet.
No, well,
look at our website.
Google's difficult because it brings up personal injury firms mainly. PK Simpson, he's not Homer. All those ones are Stacks, Good Camp, Morris Blackburn, all those. Slater and Gordon. I actually every year started doing a presentation to the different unis on how to get a job if you missed out on a summer clerkship. So 80% of firms don't participate in the clerkship program in New South Wales, right? Now, of those 20%, they probably make up 50% of the jobs. But there's a whole raft of firms, as Laura said. And if you Google it, you wouldn't know who's what, to be fair. But there's a lot of firms out there you've never heard of who are excellent, and you get good training. And if you join them, you'll get exposure early, and you'll walk into a top tier law firm 2 years later, and get paid well for it. Difficult to go overseas. So if you want to go overseas, it's a 2-step process.
Yeah.
That's why the best option if you want to travel is to go to a top tier. But if you don't want to go to the top tier, some ways I don't see any advantage of actually starting at the top tier.
Yeah, and I guess as a uni student too, if you have an interest in a particular practice area, going back to Mr. Google, what you could do is put in the practice area and law firm, which would hopefully not bring up the personal injury law firms. And
actually, Doyles Guard.
Or Doyles Guard.
Go to Doyles Guard. Yeah. Do you guys know Doyles Guard?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Familiar. But for the viewers who don't, could you kind of go into what?
Yeah, so Doyles Guard is a locally produced publication from a guy, my old boss actually, a guy called Cam Thompson. He won't be listening to this, but good guy. He saw an opportunity to create a list of all the practice areas across Australia. So New South Wales, Victoria, WA, South Australia, Queensland. Not sure if they do Tasmania, but maybe they do. And now he's gone international. And unlike Legal 500 and Chambers, which you may have heard of, they're, again, publications, they're done outside of Australia looking in. So they only really focus on the large firms. Whereas Cam will look at employment and he won't just speak to the BD departments of Allen's and get there, or they'll pay him $10,000. Hey, can you put us on the top? Which is what they do. He'll speak to their clients. He'll interview people from around in the industry and find out who the best lawyers in that space. And that might be a boutique firm, might be a major. Often the major ones are in there, but there's a whole raft of firms you would never heard of that are in there, particularly in the specialist areas, as Laura said. And they don't get applicants because no one knows who they are. So if you're really passionate about employment law or IP law or patent law or
environmental planning,
there's these firms. That's all they do. Yeah, and then where do you think the top tier law firms get their staff from? Yeah, we're unfortunate for those firms because they do all the training and they're like plucked out. But that they know the game. Gone are the days of the 51-year
tenure.
Yeah.
And if you were back in the body of your first year self, just starting university, is there anything
I'm actually the same weight as I was at uni, by the way. So
really,
yeah. Apart from the hair, I look kind of the same.
Yeah. Is there anything you'll do differently in terms of your career progression or uni life in general?
Yeah. There's one thing I do. If I was serious about being a lawyer, which turns out I never was, but I didn't know that till later, I would 100% get a job as a paralegal while at university, because you need to know what you're getting yourself into and to get enough of a taste to figure out whether you're going to enjoy it. And if you don't, then you can create alternate paths for yourself. But if you don't do that and you just go in blind like I did, it's 50-50 so whether you're going to like it, and maybe you don't. And then it's like, then you've got to think about re-engineer a change of career a bit too late potentially. So I think it's really important to do that. But apart from that, I wouldn't change much. I maybe should have read a case or two, but I didn't want to be a lawyer. On reflection, it was clear. But if you want to be a lawyer, that you have to do that. If you're not doing that, you're missing a trick.
I've probably got a controversial answer. So I'm pretty sure in my second year of uni, I knew that I didn't want to be a lawyer or continue to study. However, I had outside voices and internal stubbornness that I was going to finish the degree. Whereas if I had my time again, I would 100% switch to a degree that I knew that would be of interest to me, which would have been probably an international commerce type degree with French. Love French in high school.
And where would you get with that? Diplomat?
I could be sitting...
I'm being your dad now. Where would you get with that?
I could be sitting in the same role right here. Who knows?
I don't know. I don't know if your parents would approve. Yeah.
I think they would. But what my point is that if you really aren't enjoying what you're doing, and there are things out there that you do enjoy, try and get experience in them at that stage.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think on reflection, to my point, I was like, Laura, I never really actually thought about what I wanted to do. I just thought I'll get a job. How hard can it be? Get through uni, play some footy, have some beers, be fun. Get to the end, got a job, luckily somehow, and then realised it wasn't for me. Actually spending some time thinking about what you like, what you want to do, because it is a lot. It's a big time commitment to a law degree. And as you guys know, it's intense, right? The exams and a lot of reading. So if you don't, and I actually didn't mind the study, which is why I said get some practical experience. But if I had my time again, I would have done something related to science. But I listened to the people around me as well, who said the safe option is do finance law. It was a safe option, correct from that point of view, but it wasn't the only option. And sometimes you got to be a bit brave to go, actually, you know what I actually want to do with my life, because you only get one shot at it that I'm aware of anyway. That's another topic of conversation about past lives and multiple lives, but so you want to make sure you're going to enjoy it. And the sad thing is sometimes we meet these lawyers who are 8 years in and they don't like their jobs, and it affects their life, and they're so determined, like Laura was, to succeed and be a success, and that's great, and they do. But if you don't enjoy it, you know, I think it's a bit of a sad existence. But luckily, most lawyers do enjoy being lawyers, because if you don't, you, like we found out, you will leave early. Yeah. Some people just persist. Yeah. It's hard though to know what you want when you're young. I don't know if you ever thought about that, but
I don't know. I feel like I'm still a bit early, but I guess it's never too early. So
what year are you in?
Second year.
Yeah.
It's probably about the right time.
Yeah. And I understand that legal recruitment kind of focuses a little later down the line, but is there anything university students can kind of do to better equip themselves and become better job candidates?
Look, if you want to become a lawyer, I would definitely focus on getting good grades. If your aim is to get into a top tier, it's something that they look at, and it's something that even when you're a senior associate, sometimes even a special counsel, a law firm will ask us, can we please see their transcripts? And that's something, if I had decided that I was going to be a lawyer, that I would have loved to have been told as a uni student, the importance that those grades do hold if you want to follow in the, as I said, footsteps of the national or the top tier law firms, US law firms. They look at them.
Yeah, because I think you guys now know all this. Like, it's competitive. You know, there's a 1,000 applicants. They can't just interview everyone, so they're going to have a GPA cutoff. You know, and if you want to be in that environment, you got to get good grades. It doesn't mean you can't get a job in an area of interest or go to a boutique and then end up in the top tier.
Yeah.
But fails, you always, like, we deal with lawyers 8 years out. Oh, they failed. They still explain themselves 8 years later, and they can't even remember being at uni. You know, it's like, So some practice areas, litigation in particular, they'll look at transcripts the day you die. Corporate lawyers, more transactional, they don't tend to care as much, because without corporate lawyers, there is no litigation because no mistakes are made, right? So let's get the deal done. I don't know about that clause, that'll be fine. But great, yeah. You know, my day P's equal degrees. That's not true. D's equal a degree. Credits and distinctions is where you want to get. The odd pass is fine. And you know, if you enjoy it, you'll probably spend more time studying and get better marks because of that. Yeah. But just because you don't get a distinction average doesn't mean you can't get a job. So people.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't want people thinking that. I think it's if you're looking to get into a specific law firm. But there's plenty of law firms out there that don't put as much weight on it, and they look at extracurricular activities again throughout uni. So are you working in the legal field? Do you do any volunteer work? Are you into sports? Are you into other things? And that's what's going to set you apart in an interview as well. Also having a good and well drafted, without any mistakes on your CV. Yeah. They get lots of applications, as we spoke about earlier. So if you've got a full stop in the wrong space, that could put you out of the running in these top tiers.
Yeah, cover letters when you're at uni are important. Yeah. Cutting and paste doesn't always cut it, pardon the pun. When you've had experience, no one reads the cover letters.
Yeah.
But when at uni, what else are they going off?
Definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's it, and detail is what makes a good lawyer. Attention to detail is what makes the best lawyers. Yeah.
Definitely. You mentioned attention to detail, and I guess you've talked about academic achievements or past work experience as something that makes, I guess, a candidate great. But are there any intangible traits, perhaps personality traits, that kind of firms look for in an ideal candidate?
I mean, ideally you want a diversified workplace, so you don't want everyone to be clones of each other. But I think there's certain things, putting aside personality traits in terms of other traits and values that people look at, would be, work ethic would probably go without saying. I think when you interview, so when people interview you, they're looking to hire you, so they're not interviewing you because they think, oh, maybe you could do a job. They actually want you to get a job. So being enthusiastic and also being positive about yourself need to happen. A lot of people, when they're younger, think, oh, I know I'm good. My CV's good. Do I have to really explain that? But no, you want to tell them. They want to hear. It's the one time in life where people actually want to hear you say, I'm good at this. And they won't think, what a tool, They'll think, great, we want this person. And not overstating yourself, but being honest about it. So I think some people, particularly younger, don't sell themselves as well as they could. And it's just saying, like, I'm actually good at this and I'm happy to talk about it in an interview and not be embarrassed by that. And then happy to be there. Just like, I'm really excited and playing the game a bit. I mean, preparing for interviews is great, but anyone can say anything, but I think energy, enthusiasm, and that desire shows through. People who are a bit arrogant, aloof, or don't prepare, that comes through. Yeah.
Confident without the arrogance, I think, and know whatever company or firm that you're meeting with, know why you're there, what interests you about that specific opportunity. Any employer wants to hear from a potential employee why they like the sound of them and why they want to work there.
But also, I look at things like extracurricular activities, proven history of success, achievement, dedication, not narrow. Like, I think if you're really narrow if you just study law and that's all you do, I feel like down the line it comes through in that your awareness of even things like commercial awareness or awareness of people or interactions with people, because in the end it's a people business. Yeah. And if you don't develop those communication skills and you just focus on the studies, those people don't become partners. Yeah. Doesn't matter how bright you are. If you can't relate to somebody, if you can't communicate effectively to somebody. So part of uni is the social aspect, doing what you're doing, this sort of stuff, joining committees, joining groups, making friends, keeping friends. Yeah. Those sort of intangibles, I think, go a long way, not only in the interview, but down the line. Yeah. And I think when you have all those experiences, you actually develop a bit more common sense and nous. And I think people who are too narrow, I need to just get distinction HDs, they're probably better off in academia, a lot of them. And then they often disappoint in practice, There's those people that that are just good at everything. Well, we can't all be that, but you can try, Yeah. So being well-rounded, I know it's a cliche, but it does, whatever that means to you, whatever that thing interests you have, I think it's good to be part of that sort of stuff, yeah.
Yeah. It's all about, in any aspect, really building relationships. And you don't necessarily need to be good at it initially because, life's a journey. But I think if you put yourself out there and do different things, it's going to go a long way.
Definitely.
Very wise words, Laura.
And would you say preparing for a legal job is different to preparing for jobs in different sectors? And is there a different approach to writing up cover letters for legal jobs? And is there anything specific you guys?
Well, it's a good question. Because when I left law, because I left law school and went overseas for 6 months skiing, and then went to Byron Bay for 6 months, let us surf. So I had a good year. But then I was like, I've got to get a job. But I missed all these grad applications, so I started applying for jobs where they would look at a law degree, not necessarily legal jobs. And I found actually the questions were all kind of similar at the grad level. What's your greatest ever achievement? Tell us a time when you display leadership or initiative. How you deal with difficult situations. All those sort of behavioural type questions. Because you don't have the experience to judge anyone necessarily. Like, you haven't been a lawyer yet, or an accountant, or a an engineer, whatever it might be. So they've got to have these basic behavioural style questions. They feel like, what are they like? So I actually found it kind of similar. The exception though was in law interviews, they'd go through your academic transcript. The other places, they look at it at the outset and they wouldn't talk about it. I remember being questioned in an interview, line by line, so why'd you only get accredited in corporate law? And I was like, I made some story up about being busy with multiple. I was good at bullshitting. I got the job, but but they just went through it line by line, and I had a fail as well. Wow. Yeah, and I had a good story behind the fail, but I did have a fail. I failed criminal law because I didn't have a watch at the time. This is my story anyway. Didn't have a watch at the time, and I was at the back of the hall, and there's a clock right at the front, and I thought there was 45 minutes to go. And they said pens down in 5 minutes, and I hadn't started the third part of the component. And I was killing it, because of course I was. I had so much time. I was like, this is the best exam of my life. And I was like, I just started doing this, and I just didn't get it done. And I got 49. So I was definitely getting on the way to credit, but I learned a lesson. But that haunted me. All my applications to clerkships shot down because I failed. So no interviews at any of the top tiers.
Do you wear a watch now?
I don't. So I've got my phone and I pay attention to time. And I sat at the front after that, and I had a little clock on my desk. But I learned the lesson. But it did, it didn't cost me a job in the end. I got a job with 2 top tier partners, but they did. Whereas the other professions, they didn't really care as much. I think engineering would be different, be similar, I reckon, would be my take on it. Accounting firms, it's all about being conservative. You don't want to be too much personality. You probably don't have too much personality in a law firm interview too, a little bit, but not too much, because they want to be able to control you, show you just there to work, that sort of stuff. And there's no minimum wage issues anymore in law firms for grads, so that's all solved. So if you work 40-hour days, you'll get paid for it, whereas 3 years ago you didn't. But I didn't. Did you know? I mean, you didn't really interview for law jobs, did you? No.
I've been very lucky throughout my
She gets every job she's gone for. Wow.
I haven't applied to too many jobs, and I've got a lot of them through word of mouth. So I can't really. You
came to us through word of mouth.
Yeah.
And my business partner, 10 minutes in, goes, "Geez, you're amazing. When do we hire you?" I'm like, "Don't say that. We got." I said, "You know what? We're going to do a test." Because I was like, you got to play the game a bit. That's the other thing. You don't want to be like too honest in an interview as well. Like if you get asked something, have an answer they're going to want to hear, not just the answer to the question.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And you and many other members of your team recruit lawyers at all levels in many areas of law. Do you find that recruiting for different areas of law kind of present varying experiences or challenges for you, given the diverse nature of their activities?
I would say that it's good to have, a good understanding of the different backgrounds that people are coming to you with. But at the end of the day, people are the product. And I think, yes, everyone's very different. So people come with a variety of different reasons why they want to leave, and also different people have different quirks and interests. So I think it doesn't just come down to the practice area, it comes down to the individual and what they're looking for. So an example, I've got a 2-year corporate lawyer that's coming to me that wants to move overseas. Pretty straightforward. It's just him and he wants to move to London. Great, no issues. I have a 6-year banking and finance lawyer who has a partner, a family, a dog. That's a bit different, moving a whole family, than it would be moving one person. So there'd be different, aspects of that move. There'd be lots more relocation assistance, lots more talk about, what area you're going to go to, what schools are the kids going to go to, and things like that. Yeah. So I wouldn't specifically say it comes down to practice area. It's more the person's situation. Sometimes personally.
Are you asking, is there a particular type of character that goes to a particular area of law?
I guess, but it's also given like the diverse nature of different sectors, like banking and finance would obviously be different to personal injury. Is there any difficulty in kind of grappling with all those different practices?
As a recruiter, well, you've got to learn the areas of law. You need to know what a banking lawyer does. So when I left law, I was a corporate lawyer. So I knew a little bit about corporate law. Not a whole lot, obviously. I knew the firms I'd come across and the firms you knew, but then I got here and suddenly it was just a whole new world. Like, competition law. I didn't even know you could be a competition lawyer. Do you know what I mean? I was like, wow, I wish I'd known that when I was at uni. And I think they teach that now, but back in my day, there was no subject called competition law or trade practices law. And then so you got to learn competition, you got to learn corporate, you got to learn banking, you got to learn litigation, you got to learn employment. Not as a lawyer, but enough to be able to understand what they do. So property law, construction law, basic contract, like what are the basic contracts? So when you're asking the question and then they're not answering how you would think they should answer based on the transactions they've worked on, you can go, well, so why didn't you draft those documents? That would be, and they're like, and you can sort of figure out if anyone's any good or not. And then when you meet someone who's good, they're just like, bang, 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 bang. They just tell you, and you're like, okay, I need to ask you more questions here.
And then from that point, it's easy then to match which roles they would be suitable for and which roles, I guess, they wouldn't be suitable for. So, and then there's an education piece on that with a lawyer that maybe wants to go to a particular firm or, pivot in a different practice area, which sometimes is possible and then other times it's not. It's our job to, I guess, consult them on what options that they do have or whether it's actually a possibility or not. So from that perspective, we need to know whether it can be done or not.
Yeah, what's portable? So if you're a litigation lawyer, can you go become an employment lawyer? Yes, you can. If you're a banking and finance lawyer, can you become a corporate lawyer? Probably not, unless you're junior. And when you're, because the more expensive you get, the more they expect. So there becomes a point where you're too experienced to make a change in a law field. And you do get people pivoting for sure, but you want to do that in the first 2 to 4 years. But part of the job I like as a recruiter is just knowing all the different areas of law and being able to speak to lawyers about it. It's kind of, it's kind of satisfying. Yeah. Whereas when I was a lawyer, I didn't know anything about anything apart from what I was doing, basically. And when we've hired lawyers, like we hired a banking lawyer, a corporate lawyer, litigation, they didn't want to recruit litigation because they didn't understand it. So they've never been involved in it, and they still shy away from it. If there's a role, they just won't go near it. So, because then you're speaking to a lawyer, if you don't know what you're talking about, they'll pretty quickly know that. So you got to sort of read up on it before the meeting so you can come across as credible.
Definitely, yeah.
But also as a junior recruiter, you don't really know much, so you actually learn from the person that you're speaking to, and it's all in how you ask the questions. So asking the open questions,
letting them talk.
What documents do you draft?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you try and stay awake.
Fake it till you make it.
Don't have meetings at 2-3 p.m. after lunch. I'm fine today, but normally at 2 o'clock I fall asleep.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
I had class around that time. It was terrible.
Tough, isn't it? Yeah.
It's tough. And
criminal law was that time, I think. No kidding.
I understand that Montgomery was founded with the intention of being a disruptive startup. And did you find it hard to kind of break into the legal sector and kind of make and establish a name for yourself?
Well, disruptive startups are probably a bit of a stretch.
I think that's on our website.
It's on our website. No, it's on our website. No, it is. I wrote it. I wrote the website. It's good for marketing. I wrote all the content on the website. No, I guess I when I got into recruitment, to wind back, when I left the law, I was like, was I 25 at the time? And I was like, what am I going to do now, basically? I was working, I quit the law, and I was working in a bottle shop, actually, funny enough. And then I bumped into a recruiter one night, and they convinced me to take a job. And I thought, I'll go there and I'll place myself in a job. I'll come to the meeting and go, here's my CV. That's what I thought I was going to do. That's how naive I was. And then 4 weeks in, I loved it. But then a year later, I'm like, you know what? I think I can do this better than the people I'm working for. So I'm going to start a recruitment company. That was my plan. But I needed to get experience, relationships. So after 3 years there, I joined another recruiter that didn't have a legal function. They were just an accounting, finance recruitment company, and they wanted to start legal. And I was like, I'll start it, because I wanted someone else to pay me to do it, to see how it could I bring relationships across, who would follow me, how do you do it. Built the team out there, and then I thought it's time to go. Started this 8 years ago, and then I guess we were trying to do things a little bit differently, because recruitment back then, it was very transactional, and I felt it was all about the client. We're all about the candidate. So we try and create a good candidate experience and then create long-lasting relationships, whereas other recruiters get the deal done, never call them again. Yeah. So it's a different style. So disruptive in that way. I guess we've got ideas that are going to be more disruptive, but we haven't had the time to implement them. But that's I watch this space, I'd say.
Definitely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I've just been part of it.
Okay.
And how hard was it to kind of form and maintain those networks that were kind of integral to the starting of the firm?
Yeah, you got to be. Business is a funny. Business is some way similar to friendship, right? But you're not necessarily friends with the people you're doing business with, but you got to be really. You spend a lot of time with them, right? So networking. That's why sociopaths like Donald Trump do really well in business, because that's how they treat everyone. What can you do for me? Business is like, okay, I'm gonna network with people that we can help each other out, and it's like that. And initially I found that kind of difficult, because I'm not that sort of person, to be honest with you. But I realized you can do it in a different way. And for me, networking is all about, creating a positive relationship and showing that you're there to help them. So I spend too much time talking to people, as Laura would say. Like when she first came aboard, she's like, that meeting went for 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, well, I was wanted to hear about the kids. You know what I mean? You get to know them, and then they trust you. So it takes the networking time. It takes a lot of time to get to know people, get them to trust you, meet various clients, get them to understand you. So there's a lot that goes into that. And then when you start your own company, you've got a new brand. Like you're trying to, no candidate knows who you are. Yeah. They might know you, but they don't know who the company is. So a lot of time out there on the streets, meeting people, going to any meeting. Like I'd meet anybody, do you know what I mean? And I still would, because whether it's a uni student or a partner or a judge or whatever it might be, because you just never know what's going to come out of that conversation and how you can help them, how they can help you, and whether you want to stay in contact with them. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a slog for sure, but it was worth it, and I'd rather do it for me than somebody else, that's for sure.
And I think it comes back to what we were initially talking about way at the beginning. You know, we realized we were people.
Persons.
Yeah, that one.
Into people.
Yeah.
Non-creepy ways, into people. Yeah.
We like a yarn. And I think from my perspective, I was just really, nosy. I wanted to know about people and their backgrounds. Yeah.
She's very
I love asking I love asking questions and getting to know people, and and it doesn't always have to be about business. As Sam mentioned, I want to get to know about your kids. When were you last on holiday? Or I've just been sick. And then the next time you meet with them, you drop that into conversation, and they really appreciate that you've actually taken time to, first of all, listen to them, because there's lots of other legal recruiters out there, like there are when you become a lawyer, lots of other competitors out there, and you want to set yourself apart from the competition. And if someone feels that you're invested in them, it'll be reciprocated.
Yeah, it's time. It's sales, whether you're selling your fund, you're an asset manager, whether you're selling people like we are, where you're selling
pens,
vacuums like my dad used to sell. It's a contact sport. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be out there. You've got to meet people, and you've got to put yourself out there and see what comes of it. And that's part of the excitement. And then learning about new businesses is exciting. I love going to a new law firm and sitting down with the partners and understanding what's their model, why they're different, hearing their sell. So why would a candidate join you? And they're like, well, let me tell you. Or they're like, oh, yeah, we're good blokes. Is that it? Sometimes it's pretty apparent that you're not going to be able to find a candidate for them. Sometimes you meet these people and you're like, wow, this is a really awesome organisation which I've never heard of, and I reckon people will love working here. So that's a good part of the role as well. Yeah.
And one last question before we finish off. And both of you had long and illustrious careers and have been through uni. Do you have any general advice that you could give to the viewers? Just one last tidbit.
Yeah, I'll be snappy. I would say, and I think I might have touched on it from my uni experience, don't be scared of trying anything new. Feel the fear and do it anyway in any aspect of your life. What's the worst that could happen? And if it feels uncomfortable to do, it's probably the right thing to do.
Well, not always, but yeah. Depending on what situation.
In a career sense.
Yeah, okay.
In a career sense.
Yeah, I mean, my piece of advice would be, just, trust your instinct, trust your gut. Sometimes you can get lost in the head noise. I like to think when you're making a decision, you've got your head, your heart, and your gut, and you got to try and listen to all three. Because if you just listen to your head, it's not always the right outcome for you, but it might make sense to other people around you, including your brain as well. But just try and be in tune with your gut instinct. You know when something's right and when it's not right. And if I reflect on things I've done in the past and mistakes I've made, whether it's hiring someone, going for a job, becoming a lawyer, I didn't really truly listen to what was going on. And then on reflection, you go, you know what, I can see why that didn't work. So I've tried to get better at that, and follow that. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes, but I feel like you're more likely to choose a path that would be more suitable to you if you do that. And that, as Laura said, that can be sometimes being very brave, and becoming a lawyer is not for the faint-hearted. That's a hard job, and you work hard, and it's stressful and it's long hours, but it's incredibly rewarding as well. So if it's something you're passionate about, you go for it. And just remember the passion when you're having those stressful days, and don't, I'm out of here, because some people overreact to things. So that, and my only other piece of advice is, if you're not meditating, you should try and get that as part of your weekly, daily routine, because it'll help you with those decisions as well in life. Yeah, that'd be it for me.
I'll finish with try and catch a sunrise every now and again. Great way to start your day.
Or a sunset. I mean, I prefer the moon personally, but that's another story.
I mean, don't get me started on the moon. But I think, in the busy corporate world that we're in, if you start your day, right, be it a meditation or a walk or whatever it is that you like to do, before you start your job, be it at home or in the office, doing something for yourself, away from technology, or it's just you, is a really good way to start your day. And if you can start to practice that, that's probably a bit of advice that I would have loved to have got whenever I was younger. It really makes a difference.
One final thing, and you can edit this out. Just be careful with your words. People use words flippantly. I think words are powerful, and if you want to be trustworthy and have respect, you gotta choose your words carefully and walk the talk. There's a lot of people out there that say things and they don't back it up, and you see that in partnerships and law firms where the partner says, "Yeah, I'll give you a review," and they say, and then nothing happens, or they don't give feedback because they don't know how to give feedback, or they don't want to give bad news or whatever. But I feel like there's a lot of people out there in business, in particular, who don't honour the words they speak, and I think it's noticed, and I think it leads to staff turnover, and I think it's problematic in many other ways too. That old saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." I think words can do some damage. Yeah.
Sounds good. I guess that wraps up our episode. Thank you very
Thanks
much,
for having
Sam
us.
and Laura.
Thank you.
Hopefully that was useful.
Speaking to us today. You gave us very good insights, and look forward to the episode coming out.
Good questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to InCites by the UNSW Law Society. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any future episodes.